are growing calls for calm in the aftermath of Iran's large-scale air attacks on Israel. It involved more than 300 drones and missiles against Israeli military targets. Iran says its air offensive came in response to an Israeli strike on its consulate compound in the Syrian capital Damascus earlier this month, which killed 2 Iranian generals. Manisa Denibalan joins us live with the events that unfolded this weekend. Manisa, what has the reaction been today from world leaders?
Hey, Nicole, don't retaliate. That's what many leaders, including Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, have said to Israel. In response to the strike on its consulate in Syria, Iran aimed 170 drones, 120 ballistic missiles, and 30 cruise missiles at Israel Saturday night. 99% of that was intercepted with the help of the United States, UK, and Jordan, according to an Israeli military spokesman. Today, the IDF said Iran's actions will be met with a response as Israel's war cabinet met to discuss next steps. The two nations have been on a collision course throughout Israel's 6-month war against Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip. Officials in Turkey, Jordan, and Iraq said Iran warned them days before the attack, but today the White House said the U.S. didn't get any notice.
We did receive messages from Iran, and they received messages from us too. But there was never any message to us or to anyone else on the time frame, the targets, or the type of response. I've seen reporting that the Iranians meant to fail, that this spectacular and embarrassing failure was all by design. I've also seen Iran say that they provided early warning to help Israel prepare its defenses and limit any potential damage. All of this is categorically false.
Many world leaders have condemned Iran, but the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says its actions were proportionate and legal. In a news conference today, a spokesperson said Iran has no intention of exacerbating regional tensions, stressing that the country abides by the Charter of the United Nations and the principles of international law. On Sunday, officials in the U.S. pledged their support for Israel, but said they will not participate in any retaliatory strike.
We have been coordinating a diplomatic response to seek to prevent escalation. Strength and wisdom need to be the same sides, the different sides of the same coin. I've been in close communication with counterparts in the region, and we will continue to do so in the hours and days ahead.
Belgium, Germany, France, and the Czech Republic have all summoned its Iranian ambassadors over the attack. The French president and UK's prime minister are also urging Israel to refrain from retaliation.
I will also shortly be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu to express our solidarity with Israel in the face of this attack and to discuss how we can prevent further escalation. All sides must show restraint.
Meanwhile, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is joining calls urging Israel to de-escalate rising tensions in the Middle East. Joly says she will be discussing more sanctions on Iran at this week's meeting with her fellow foreign ministers in the G7. Today, during a scheduled meeting with Biden, Iraq's prime minister called for restraint in the Middle East, while Biden used the opportunity to reiterate America's commitment to Israel's security. Nicole?
Thanks, Manisa. And to further explain how this conflict has escalated, we're joined by Michael Pregent, former U.S. intelligence officer and senior fellow with the Hudson Institute. Michael, we've heard world leaders use words like unprecedented, reckless, and dangerous to describe Iran's actions against Israel over the weekend. How would you describe what happened?
Initially, thanks for having me. Initially, I thought it was going to be a face-saving gesture. Initially, we just heard about slow-moving drones moving towards Israel. So I said, okay, this is their way of saying this is the first time Iran has attacked Israel from Iranian soil with slow-moving, easily defeated drones. Then it escalated, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. So this attack, instead of being a face-saving gesture, actually seemed like the intent was to overwhelm the Israeli air defenses. It did not. Most of the drones were defeated before they got into Israeli airspace. This was unprecedented in that it targeted population centers, not just military bases, not in obscure areas of Israel. It targeted population centers, and now Israel's being asked to not respond, that the defense was a response enough. And I'm of the opinion that Israel has to do something to reestablish red lines and deterrence. If they don't, this can become the new standard, which is very dangerous for the region.
So what are the next steps for Israel? Should people be concerned about a possible third world war based on whatever response they decide?
Yeah, so I've been looking at that. So Russia and China are not going to get involved. They're very pragmatic when it comes to Iran's actions in the region. Your audience should know that Israel has conducted numerous hour-long campaigns in Syria targeting Iranian proxies and IRGC Quds Force officials. Quds Force officials from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, much like the general that was targeted in Damascus, Syria, General Reza Zahedi. And Russia sat on its hands. Russia did not activate its air defenses. Russia did not shoot down Israeli jets. And Tehran complained to Moscow, well, what are you doing in Syria if you're not there to protect us from Israeli airstrikes? And Putin's answer through his military was, we're not here to protect you from Israel. We're here to make sure Assad stays in power, and we'll make sure that we hang on to our port and our airfield. So I see Russia and China as very pragmatic chess players in this arena that are not going to let it escalate to a World War III type of scenario. And now that Iran's in the picture, I think it actually gives Israel a little bit more standing with the international community. You know, this is a unprecedented response for the targeting of a terrorist general in a building that was rented out. So this annex, this diplomatic mission that everybody's talking about, is actually 2 floors that the IRGC rented out next to the consulate from a private realtor. And that's what was hit. And nobody's doing the investigation into that. They're basically accepting Iran's interpretation of this, that a consulate was struck. And this is a violation of the UN Charter 51. And that's why Iran responded. So I know that's a really long answer, but I think it warrants one.
Now that Iran has gotten involved, and in a much heavier way than anyone was anticipating, where does the U.S. involvement go from here? Do you anticipate any reaction from them?
Well, now that Iran is into the equation, it changes. If Iran kills an American in Iraq or Syria, the U.S. will respond. If Iran kills Israelis inside of Israel, the U.S. will have to respond. If you don't support Israel, then that means you're not going to support Germany. You're not going to support, our other allies, because Israel is our closest ally in the region. It would also signal to Saudi Arabia, we're not going to support you. Jordan, we're not going to support you. We have to remember that by whether you support or don't support Israel, it's not limited to Israel. It will send a message to your allies. And what we're seeing is it sent a message to our adversaries to be very brazen with what they want to do. This strike is not over yet. This is a chess game. Israel will respond in some way. And right now, Israel has all the strategic patience it needs to not only secure more sanctions from the United States on Iran, but also the international community is weighing whether or not to designate the IRGC in its entirety as a terrorist unit or a terrorist organization, which would be devastating for Iran, because the IRGC has its tentacles in every sector of Iran's economy.
We'll be keeping a close eye on where this goes. Thank you so much for speaking with us on Trending Now, Michael.
Thank you. I look forward to talking in the future.